Yes, and Muslims throughout the country and across the world would celebrate the annual Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice on the Islamic calendar. And Muslims use the occasion of Eid al-Adha to pray to Allah and to glorify His name for His grace and favors. With me in the studio this morning are two gentlemen. Irbad Ibrahim is to my far left, and he is political Islam. He likes that one.
Surprisingly, you keep forgetting this thing. Yeah,
I keep forgetting it. But you're also an expert in Middle Eastern culture.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm totally grateful for your company.
You're welcome.
And then there is Abdul Salam Muhammad.
Yes.
Abdul is CEO of Ya Salam Publishers.
Yeah.
I'm also very grateful you joined us this morning. But Ibrahim, let me start with you.
Okay.
Eid al-Adha, what is it?
Okay, Eid al-Adha is an Arabic expression, and it literally means festivity of sacrifice. You've heard of the patriarch Abraham. According to biblical anecdotes, the son he was to sacrifice was Isaac. That is where we are at variance with Christianity. As Muslims, we think that the son in question was Ishmael. So Abraham went to bed one night, and as a prophet, he had a vision in his dream. And this is recounted in Quran chapter 37, verse 102. So he woke up in the morning, and then he summoned his son. He said, Ya bunayya inni ara fil manami anni azbahuka fanzur maza tara. He said, my son, last night I saw myself decapitate you in my dream. Certainly, if my dad told me he saw himself decapitate me, my reaction would be harsh. The least I would do would be to report him to the police for intended first-degree homicide. But Ishmael was born in a household of religiosity. He was born to a prophet, so therefore he didn't object to it. Then he told him, Ya abatif alma tu'mar, satajudni insha'Allahu min as-sabirin. He said, Dad, do what you are divinely ordered. You will find me in enduring the pain of the slaughter, a patient one. Yeah. So on this premise, Abraham and his son Ishmael took to the mountains, and when they got there, Ishmael lay, politely on a rock. And when Abraham was just about to execute the divine order he had been given, he heard a voice from the heavens saying that it was all a hoax. It was a test from God Almighty. So God Almighty ransomed Ishmael with a ram. That is how come we Muslims commemorate this day, this important event, by slaughtering camels, cattle, goats, sheep, and other animals. So on such a day, we are to slaughter and put smiles on the faces of all people. That is why if you are a wealthy Muslim, the onus lies upon you to carry out this important religious ritual. So when you slaughter the animal, you are to divide the meat into three. The first third will be for you and your family. The second third should be distributed to the poor and needy in society. And the last third should be distributed to your friends and neighbors. So on such a day, we wouldn't want to see paupers begging on the streets. Everybody has to put on his best. You have to be in a Muslim apparel. Some of us will also have to put away our suits and ties to look like a Muslim, so that you can blend in with the rest of the Muslim community to commemorate this important event. And it's nice to know that such an event is shared by all the major religions of the world: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, because we all believe that the persona of Abraham is a converging point for all these three major religions.
Abdul, tell me, so as a Muslim, at the point where I am actually taking part in Eid al-Adha, what should it mean to me? We know the background, we understand the story now, but as a Muslim, on this day, let me say, what should it mean to me?
Yeah, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to be on Joy News. Today is a day of joy for Muslims, and thankfully we are on Joy News to talk about issues of Eid al-Adha. Like our brother rightly gave a very detailed background to the celebration. Now, back to your question. The celebration is a celebration of commemoration. So it is actually a period of reflection. When a Muslim is supposed to be part of the festivities of Eid al-Adha, what is more important is the reflections and the lessons you get out of this celebration. Now, if you go back to the story between Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael or Ismail, you realize that Prophet Abraham had a dream. And as a prophet, the dream of prophets is actually a commandment from God. Now, we pick one important lesson from this. He had a dream. Now, human beings in general, dreams are very important. So that is one lesson we pick as we commemorate the story between Ibrahim and his son. Now, after he had a dream, he understood that the dream is actually a commandment from God. But because of the nature of what he saw in the dream, he actually called his son. He could have told his son, I gave birth to you, and I'm a prophet. I saw in a dream that I'm supposed to sacrifice you. Come and let me go and sacrifice you. But he did not do that. Listen to how he put it. He said, oh, my son. We learn a lesson again. Respect. Listen to how the father spoke to his son. Oh, my son. He gave him a lot of respect.
And that's something we don't have here, because the elderly feels it's always the child or the younger one who should respect the elderly. And it's been that way. And I'm happy you mentioned it.
And it's quite unfortunate that several years come, years in, years out, we celebrate Eid al-Adha, but we lose sight of some of these important lessons that we're supposed to learn. So he said, oh, my son, I saw in my dream that I offer you for sacrifice. Then he said, Inzur mazatara. See, what is your opinion about that? Consultation. Very important. He had received commandment, but he never wanted to force the commandment upon his child, because that commandment will involve the obedience of both of them. And that is why in Islam in general, we say La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. This is a very clear principle in Islam. You cannot force someone to do what he does not agree. Then listen to the reply of the son, Ismail. Very, very, very wonderful. A 13-year-old at that stage was able to understand that the vision or the dream of his father, who is a prophet, is actually a commandment from God. So he said, oh, my father. Another respect to the father. Oh, my father, do what you have been commanded. Now, the father had said that I saw in a dream that I am offering you for sacrifice. But Prophet Ismail understood the vision, and he interpreted it as a commandment from God. So he said, oh, my father, act according to the commandment of your God, and inshallah, you will find me as one of the people who will be patient with that sacrifice. Then we learn all these kind of lessons when we do the celebration of Eid al-Adha. So beyond that, we learn also that as human beings and as Muslims, we should learn to behave like Abraham did. Indeed, Abraham before then was praying to have a son. He didn't have any son. And now he had the son. And the Quran describes the son at that stage when Abraham had the dream. He says, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أُسَّعْيَا. That is when he had grown up and he could be sent to do something, work with his father, assist his father in whatever the father is doing. That was when he had the commandment to sacrifice the son. It was indeed a very difficult moment for him, but Ibrahim alayhi salam understood the test, because life is a test, so that you could have testimony. So he actually went ahead to fulfill that test.
And then today, like Ibrahim said, it turned out to be a hoax.
Yeah.
You know, it was a test from God, really.
And very importantly, after the sacrifice was replaced with a ram, God Almighty said that we are going to indeed make this celebration a permanent thing, so that people will remember what Ibrahim and Ismail did in their act of obedience to Allah. So hence the significance of celebrating Eid al-Adha every year, basically to commemorate Ibrahim and Ismail in obedience to Allah.
You've mentioned respect, consultation, obedience, and over time here, Muslim communities have been tagged with not having these traits you have mentioned. It could be unfair, but is this really reflective of our Muslim communities? That's how we are, you know. We are respectful, we're...
Yeah, I think largely Muslims are people of respect. They respect people of consultation. But very unfortunate, you could have in a community or in a society certain individuals that may not go according to the principles of respect and all those things. It's very unfortunate to mention, but if you've gone through the Quran, you've gone through the principles of Islam, you read the issue of the Holy Prophet, his character, then you will understand that respect is such a very permanent aspect of Islam. So let me say, we will not deny that you could have in the Muslim community some individuals who do not understand the religion, and they may act in a way that will bring disrepute to Islam. Beyond that, is also one thing that Muslims should understand. This religion that we are practicing is a global thing, and people have their individual, personal, political, and regional ambitions that they will try to put into the religion. So as a Muslim, it is incumbent upon you that you do not do anything until you know its meaning in Islam. That's why it's very important.
And you're talking about extremism.
Yeah.
Would come to that, but Ilred, you would also agree that really a lot of times the people who come across as Muslims who are doing the wrong things may not actually be Muslims. They just live in the Muslim community.
Yeah, exactly. And my brother has spoken quite well. Certain basic tenets in every society, like mutual respect between the elderly and the young. The elderly should be respectful to the young should also be courteous. That is the kind of upbringing we've all been given. I grew up in a house where when my parents had a visitor, I would, by default, leave the house because you would know that such a meeting should be a clandestine one between elderly people. So that training is imbibed in us. But unfortunately, we don't swallow everything hook, line, and sinker. So it is quite understandable that you will have some individual cases of exception like that. But alhamdulillah, thank God, the Muslim community largely is a very respectful one. The people there are taught to be respectful. When we even walk with elderly people, we hardly walk shoulder to shoulder with them. When your dad is walking, you walk behind him and you should lower your gaze. Most of the time when I find myself speak with my parents, I hardly contribute to the discussion. You have to listen to them. They are elderly people. They are those who have brought you to the world. No matter how much you've read, you should be able to wash their feet and learn from them. Yeah. So that training is given. But unfortunately, just like in any other society, you don't get everybody jumping into the bandwagon of righteousness and good in society. That's why there are exceptional cases like that. But this day has come to remind all of us that we should take stock of what we've done in the past year. We should correct the wrongs and ameliorate the positives as well. And therefore, all these lofty ideas of consultation and respect, mutual, coexistence with people of other faiths are much accentuated now, much more accentuated now than they are on any other day of the year. So it's a special day for us. Unfortunately, Islam is seen as a violent religion, the issues of extremism and all that. We always want to point to the world that those people who are engaged in those activities of violence are people who are disenchanted, depending upon their geographical location of the world. But the actors involved happen to be Muslims. That's the only difference. The actors involved happen to prefer a certain religion, which is called Islam. So their activities are not as a direct consequence of the tenets of that religion. They are players in a certain conflict, they are actors in that conflict, but they just happen to be Muslims. So let's do well and separate people's crimes from their religions. When a person commits a felony, the person has to be treated like a felon. He's a criminal first before he's a Muslim. He's an armed robber first before he's a Buddhist. He's a murderer first before he's a Christian. So when things like the unfortunate event of Kenya happen, let's do well and dissociate the actors of such heinous acts, the perpetrators of such heinous acts from the religion, because we keep, trumpeting that Islam means peace, it's a religion of peace and harmonious coexistence with people of other faiths. So as much as possible, thank God now the world is listening to us, and it's good to bridge the gap. Their approachment should even be more effective. So we get to understand, you can't live in peace with a neighbor you don't know.
And so why haven't we then seen a global, dissociation, if you like, a global fight against extremism, especially from Islam?
You see, Islam as a religion is on a global scale suffering from lack of leadership. Throughout our history, Just as the papacy is there for the Catholics, we also have a centralized system like that. So we saw the Umayyad dynasty, we saw the Abbasid dynasty, and the most recent dynasty, the Ottoman Empire, got crumbled after the First World War. So now there's no central leadership. Every Muslim is looking up to some other leader. Every Muslim is looking up to some other leader. Someone asked me this morning on a show, why is it that the Muslims in Ghana are quite different? We are different because we are headed by a peaceful, responsible man, who is the national chief imam, Dr. Nuhu Sharubutu. So not every Muslim has that luxury of looking up to such a leader. So the youth channel their exuberance into satisfying the whims and caprices and parochial and cheap interests of some players in the world on a global scale. But locally, we have a leader and we look up to that leader all the time. That is why there seems to be a nexus between us and the rest of the community.
Can we get to a point where we would have that leadership? Is it possible at all?
It will be difficult because there's a lot of religious schism amongst us. We have the Sunnis on one hand, we have the Sunni and the Shiites. Within the Sunnis, there are so many divisions. So it will be very difficult for the Muslim community, the global Muslim community, to come together and appoint a leader. That is why all fragments are depending upon the leadership they are given by certain people. But as much as possible, Muslims should learn that you will always be stronger when you are united. You will always be stronger when you are united. But as to the issue of clerics coming out to condemn such barbaric acts like what we saw in Westgate Ball, people are doing their best. That is why we are grateful to the media, the Ghanaian media, now that we want to dissociate ourselves from certain activities that are deemed as Islamic, even though the actors themselves are not acting based upon the pristine tenets and teachings of the religion. So scholars worldwide have condemned such activities, and as social commentators will also do our best to reach out to the youth and explain what the religion means.
This lack of a unified Islamic front globally, it's telling on the fight against extremism and terrorism, and so we could then infer that unless we probably have this in place, it'll be difficult to win the fight against terrorism.
Look,
or extremism.
When Osama bin Laden started his fight against the United States in the 1980s, Osama was not in any good standing to determine the trajectory of the Muslim community on a global scale. But because the youth felt disenchanted, frustrated by the fact that most of the regimes, even in the Middle East, are puppet regimes. They are minions of Western powers. They are being used as pawns on the chessboard of other world superpowers. So there's lack of leadership in the Middle East. And whatever is happening with the Muslim world, regardless of any part of the world, whether in Africa, Asia, or else, it's a direct spillover of the political vicissitudes in the Middle East. So not until we put our acts together in the Middle East, it will be very difficult to have a unified front. That is why Saudi Arabia and Iran should play a pivotal point in getting back the Muslim world on track. They should speak to the Sunnis, the Saudis should speak to the Sunnis, and then whip them in line. And then the Shiites, powerhouse Iran, should also be on the deck. I should have all hands on deck so that we resolve this. As a Ghanaian Muslim, I'm a Sunni Muslim, and I follow what is happening from Saudi Arabia. There could be a Shiite Muslim here. So we can't be united when we are receiving mixed signals from the cradle of the religion, which is the Middle East. That is why it's a global challenge. We are doing our best to correct the wrongs so that Islam will be brought back to the pristine nature of peace and peaceful coexistence.
Which could have helped a great deal in fighting terrorism.
You know, Christians are even more divided than Muslims. There are more denominations in Christianity than there are sects in Islam. But you've been able to, by and large, put your acts together. So the Catholics make up about 1.2 billion of the total Christian population in the world. They have quite a chunk. And so if the Pope is able to control more than 60% of such a religious following, then it means that the other charismatic churches will be able to cope with the others. But ours is, there is no central leadership. As a young man, I can form a cult and give it a name and start doing whatever I want because we don't look up to any centralized leadership. So it's a challenge, and we are calling upon the rest of the international community to help us, because we form part of the international community, to help us so that we X all these erroneous, practices of the religion. And we keep saying that the religion in itself is standing somewhere peacefully, but the actors who prefer that religion may carry out such atrocious acts of terrorism in any part of the world.
Let's talk about women in Islam. Does Islam necessarily denigrate women?
Now, a woman is put on a position of respect and elevation in the Islamic religion. The Prophet had a wife. Her name was Aisha. This lady recounted about 2,000 of the sayings of the Prophet, and all the legislation we use as Muslims in our prayer, fasting, Hajj, marriage, and all that are based upon the teachings of the Quran and the utterances of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it doesn't suffice you to uphold the teachings of the Quran without considering the conduit through which the message has come to you. You should not only follow the Bible, you should follow the practices of Christ as well. So in following the practices of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we didn't live as contemporaries with him. He died more than 1,433 years ago. So we rely upon the anecdotes that have been handed down to us as people over the centuries. And it was a woman who was so pivotal in cumulating all of these sayings of the Prophet because she was one of his wives. So we hold women in high esteem. A woman should be respected, and a woman's liberties should also be respected as well. That is why we don't violate women. When you go to the Muslim world, rape cases are very minimal. Rape cases are very minimal. That's why we are saying that Sharia law is not only about the amputation of limbs and the decapitation of murderers. There are aspects of Sharia every secular state in the world can apply. Issues of homosexuality, armed robbery, rampant rape of women, all of these can be curtailed if we take certain, nuanced aspects of Sharia law without necessarily turning into a Sharia state. So the woman is quite respected in the Muslim religion, and she has the right to choose. Most of the time you read in the media, there are certain Muslim communities.
I was going to come to that. So then how do we explain?
Or a 13-year-old is forced into marriage and all that. These are isolated cases. These are isolated cases, even though they are quite accentuated in the media. But look, hell will break loose if you said my sister should marry someone she doesn't like. Even the imams in the community will not agree to superintend such a thing that is done under duress.
Then Abdul, maybe some of our imams and local leaders are going soft.
I don't think so. Like he said, we have very minute cases of incidents where Muslim women will be forced to marriage against their own desire. And sometimes the media has a powerful kind of ripple effect. Once the media carries a story, another media carries it, and it sometimes may feel that is the norm. But in reality, when you go into the tenet of Islam, one of the very basic principles of marriage is acceptance. The lady must accept before the marriage will actually take place.
And so all of these things and the fact that they are not allowing girls to go to school, it's not just here in Ghana. They're not allowing girls to go to school, girls can't play with boys, and all of that. They're just, what are they? Because on the outside, sometimes I get the idea, what are they doing to our women?
No, but the issue of segregation should not be misconstrued. We are, biological beings. We have certain, our physiology supports sexuality and all that. The world is suffering today because of debauchery and immorality. So Islam as a religion realizes this quite early in the day. Look, you can be in a mansion with your parents. I have 6 sisters. I grew around women. But as soon as you hit the age 10, because you become conscious of your sexual self, your place of sleep should be separated from your sisters. When we attend functions, women should sit somewhere different from men. All of this is to guide the sanctity of women.
In Libya, women can't share taxis with men. If a woman is sitting in a taxi, you can't use it.
Some of them are quite extreme. So sometimes you read very funny stories about what these Arabs do when they go into a free society like the West. Look, here we see a lot of things as Muslims. We see women and we are okay. But there are Arabs who are coming from the Muslim world. The certain sensitive parts of women we are used to, when they see perhaps maybe something will happen. So I think they're also waking up to that reality. In Saudi Arabia, first the woman couldn't drive. Now they are pushing for that. They should understand that women are just like men. We don't consider women inferior, but we do our best to guard and guide the sanctity of women.
Abdul, let's talk about the acceptance you raised and the fact that it's critical when it comes to Islam. what does Islam also prescribe in the event that some of these things are violated? Like Irbad mentioned, that they are isolated cases, they are just a violation of what Islam teaches. What prescriptions are there?
Yeah, practically from the beginning, if the lady does not accept the man, the marriage is considered not a marriage. But in events where they get into that marriage, Islam as a religion provides a lot of mechanisms for redress. You know, if you are into marriage with someone and you feel like the marriage is not going on well, there are a lot of laid down procedures that the scholars will take you through to make sure that you get out of that marriage. Although in Islam, divorce is not really encouraged, but it is something that is permitted when you get to that level. And one thing to realize about the significance of women relating to Eid al-Adha is quite an important thing relating to this celebration. That is the farewell sermon of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. This celebration is a celebration that comes at the end of Hajj. And when the Prophet did embark on his Hajj, he gave a sermon. That is the farewell sermon, the last sermon of the Holy Prophet. And in that sermon, the Prophet quite clearly talked about two important things. One is the life of every single person in this world is sacred. So every Muslim who understands this, there is no way you kill an innocent person in the name of terrorism or in the name of extremism. That is outside Islam. Now, you remember, if you analyze the reason why Abraham was not allowed to sacrifice his son Ishmael, was just to amplify the fact that Islam nowhere accepts the sacrifice of human being, killing of human being. And Allah has stated in the Holy Quran, if you kill one person, it is as if you have killed the entire world. And if you support one life, make one life live, it is as if you have made the entire world live. So quite frankly, there is no basis for all these kind of things. You look at the life of the Holy Prophet, and in that farewell of the Holy Prophet talked about respect for women. Very important relating to this Hajj and this Eid al-Adha celebration. The Prophet has said that the best of you that is loved in the sight of Allah is the most kind to their women.
Right.
So the issue about terrorism, the issue about this women subjugation is actually a lack of understanding of Islam that has been pushed, I can't say by whichever group, but it has been pushed for a very long time. And because of the globalization of the world, Muslims nowadays do not take the understanding of the religion from authorities who really understand the religion. You go to the media and you just read an article, you don't know who is behind the article, and it gives you some logics to try to say that, in fact, the entire Quran has a context. If you do not understand the context within which the verses and the hadiths of the Quran is revealed, you may misunderstand it. You get it? So, and people have the veiling and all these things. These are all acts of protection. Act of protection for the woman. It is not subjugation.
Yes, yeah. So, in addendum to what my brother Abdul Salam has said, with the issue of rape, some sociologists carried out a brief experiment in the United States. Harlem is a very rugged area in the U.S. All the drug, cartels are in there. People get raped and all that.
Right.
So they got a media lady as pretty as Kemeni. So first of all, the experiment was that she should go past a place where those drunkards and riffraff people were. And because she wasn't completely covered, she was scanty in her costume and all that, they molested her. Then after some time, they made this same pretty lady put on the full Muslim veil and then the flowing gown to cover and protect her sensitive areas. And when she passed, you know what those people said? She said, "Salaam alaikum." They said, "Salaam alaikum." They were
the
greeting
same people.
her, the same people. So it means that we are not telling the world that jettison your faith and come and embrace Islam. We share a lot in the virtues of Christianity. We share a lot in the virtues of Judaism. We also have something good to offer the world. So therefore, we shouldn't be shut completely that we are a barbaric religion, a religion of savagery, a religion of the 7th century, a religion of the desert. No, we say it's better to judge than war. So we want to, reach out across the aisle to people of other faiths so that the world will be a better place than it is currently for everybody.
I agree. If we it looks like we don't have an understanding of a lot of the practices of Islam.
Yeah, and I think the Ghanaian system of education too has been of help. I grew up in a society where you wouldn't come home with a Christian colleague in school. By the moment I got to secondary school, that was the first time I could interact firsthand with Christians, because I attended a Catholic secondary school, Opokwari School in Kumasi. So I was sleeping in the same dormitory with these people. I got to dialogue with them. I got to know who Jesus was. I would go to church every Sunday. So that has made us, appreciate the fact that the Christian neighbor should not be an enemy. He should be a friend in progress, and for you as a Muslim. And that system has really been of help. But for that system, I don't think we would have been able to interact harmoniously with Christians. Yeah.
I'm happy you mentioned education, because it was actually the next issue I wanted us to tackle as far as Islam is concerned. A lot of times in our Muslim communities, we realize that our children are not put through schools. And I'm using Muslim community cautiously, because I don't expect that only Muslims live in the Muslim community. It's not realistic to think that way at all. How important is education to Islam?
And the Holy Prophet said, I'm not trying to be a theologian, but I'll quote a bit. The Prophet said, the seeking of knowledge should commence from the cradle, and that process should be perpetual and never ending until the day your corpse is lowered into your grave. So you should start seeking knowledge from the moment you are even born. The onus lies upon everybody to seek knowledge. And he even said, seek knowledge even if you had to travel to China. He even said, seeking knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim, male and female alike. So seeking knowledge is very important. That is the strongest tool you can equip yourself with to live in a hostile world like ours today. So Muslims have to seek knowledge, and the process should be unceasing. People go to school, but unfortunately, because Ghana is dominated by Christians, and the fact that our colonialists did not also help matters so much. When you go to the Cape Coast Castle, you have a dungeon where our forefathers and great-grandfathers were mutilated and tortured. But just above it, you would have the Anglican Church and all that. So when they came, the Brits brought us Christianity. That was a positive thing. But they also came around as people who condemned a certain religion. They came as Orientalists as well. So to access education coming from such people whom we could overtly consider enemies of our faith, our great-grandfathers did not enroll our fathers. Most of us have grandparents who never stepped into a classroom. Some have fathers and mothers who can't even read a simple sentence, because those people who were able to access the white man's education ended up following the religion of the white man. So there was a lot of discouragement coming from all quarters within the Muslim community against accessing Western education. But there has been a tectonic shift in the past few decades. Since the 1940s, people have started going to school, and a certain middle class, breed of Muslims is growing right now. And thank God we've woken up to that realization. People are spending a lot on their children's education, and women and girls and boys alike are going to school wherever you go in the Muslim community. It's a positive thing.
Yeah, I think just to add a little to what my brother has said relating to the issue of education, as a researcher as well, it's important to put into context the issue of education and Islam. Islam is one of the few religions, or as a religion, amplifies the issue of education. Right from the first verse, right from the numerous hadiths that our brother quoted. And you could realize that before the Prophet Muhammad came to the Arabs, they were completely backward people, of ignorant people. They could not show off anything. But the Prophet came and pushed them to learn, and they learned from the Greeks. And that is why, if you go into history, you realize that most of the discoveries, from astronomy to geology, from mathematics, medicine, were all pushed by Muslims, to the point that at a point in the entire world, everybody has to come to the feet of the Muslims to learn. So, and that is not just for the global Muslim. If you come to the issue of Muslims in this country, Ghana, it was the same thing. The first issue of Ghana was written by Muslims in Arabic. They used the Arabic writings to write the issue of Ghana, the issue of the Ashanti Kingdom. There is a mention of one great Muslim scholar, Sheikh Alhaj Umar Ketekrachi, who wrote and described Ghana, the issue of Ghana, even beyond the white men could come and bring. So from that point of history, you realize that Muslims and education are actually one and the same thing. But because of the history of the coming of the colonialists, so when we say Muslims do not like schooling or are not educated, we are talking about the consequence of the event of colonization, when it was clearly an objective of the colonialists to make sure that we stop Islam, we stop the spread of Islam, and we convert people to Christianity. So
do we still have the Muslim schools? Do we still have them?
Yeah, we do. The Makaranta system is still there. Look, there are certain interesting facts that have been stashed away into the sand dunes of history that most people don't know. I'll give you a typical example. He mentioned discoveries. Do you know chemistry was discovered by a Muslim scholar?
I'm not surprised. I think I did a bit of geography, and there were a lot of Muslim scholars in there.
Mozambique was discovered by not Christopher Columbus, but a Muslim called Musa bin Baik. But because the indigents could not mention the name Musa bin Baik, they said Mozambique. Ghana comes from the Arabic word Ghani. It means rich, because of the wealth of gold we have here. The Ashanti king took a scribe, and the scribe wrote the history of Ashanti and daily proceedings at the palace in Arabic. And Spain was quite, at a point in time, a Muslim, enclave.
That's true.
Cordoba and all those. But we've missed the boat. Unfortunately, it goes back to the lack of leadership I talked about. So in the past 200 years, Muslims have always taken the back seat. And the time has come for us to assert ourselves. That is why some people are trying to assert themselves using other mechanisms. If you can't, challenge the white people in matters of astronomy, knowledge and all that, you want to get a quick fix. Just kill the person and then the person leaves the world entirely. So in your bid to assert yourself, you should do it in the right way by seeking knowledge. People are going to the moon. People are going to the moon. People are going to outer space. All the discoveries we have in the world are coming from a certain quarter of the world. So if you want to be important to the world, you don't do so through the power of the sword or the barrel of the gun. You do so through the power of the pen, by seeking knowledge. So the onus lies upon us as Ghanaians. As a country, we are seen as a beacon of hope for the African continent. Muslims in Ghana, look, when you come to diplomatic circles, when ambassadors finish their duties and they are leaving Ghana, one remarkable thing I've monitored, most of the ambassadors, they talk so highly about the fact that Muslims and Christians in this country live harmoniously. That is one keynote they never forget to take back to their central governments. So we have to, keep that practice of living entirely in peace with one another.
I'll give you your final words, words to our Muslim brothers and sisters as we mark this day. But let's talk about Malaysia and the fact that there's been the law that if you're not Muslim or you're not from Islam, you shouldn't use the word Allah to refer to your God. What are your thoughts?
Allah is just a word. It's an Arabic word. Everybody believes in the supernatural. Look, even our own local people, animists, believe that there's a certain strong, potent force out there that calls the shots about what happens. But as accounts would call that force Onyankopon. And the others will call that force Mawu. So if Arabs have chosen to call that force Allah, nobody should be prevented from using such a word. When you take the Arabic version of the Bible, wherever there is God in your King James version, there is Allah. If I open the Bible in Arabic and start reading it, you would think that I'm reading the Quran. So it's just a language. Someone believes in God, but he has another idea of how God should be served. So it doesn't, it's not prudent. It doesn't make sense that you would, gag people from expressing themselves religiously.
Abdul, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I share in his opinion, but we do not have the benefit of maybe the policy, what informs that policy. But just to add to that, Allah is the name of Almighty Allah. And this name is not only Arabic. It's shared. If you go into the Bible and you read the verse, and quite interesting, that is the only verse that you still keep the original language of Jesus kept in the Bible, where he's supposed to be on the cross and he shouted, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Now you read theologians and the analysis, they will tell you that this rendition of Eli is another pronunciation of Allah. Now you see Elohim in the Bible. Elohim is nothing but Allah, the same pronunciation. You know, the Aramaic is like a sister language, like the tree and then the fanti. So the pronunciation, like in Islam or Muslims will say shalom, salam. Then the Jewish people will say shalom. So I don't think if anybody understands critically the origin of the word Allah will ban any person from using the word, because it is a word which is shared across religions, but just that because of the changing of time, a lot of things has been changed from one language to another. The word of the name of Jesus, for example, from Isa, Yesu, or Isa to Jesus, and all those things. So that significance is actually missing.
Right. And do you two love soccer?
So much.
Irad, do you do? Irad, no. I don't think you do.
Why do you say so, Kemeni? I'm a fan, and I believe so well that we'll capitalize upon Egypt's political turmoil to bag in some goals today.
I hope so too. You want to predict scorelines?
I wouldn't. I don't put figures, so but I just hope for a win. But we should also the Egyptians are not a spent force. You can't rule out the fact that Abu Trika and other people pose a threat to Ghana. I wish my country well.
Absolutely.
And I hope that we come out of this successful.
Abdul.
Yeah, I would like to use the opportunity to want to predict a 3-0 win for Ghanaians. I believe this is a very important day where we're going to have a very important match on the day of Eid al-Adha. It means a lot for Ghanaians. And then
a win would encourage us to eat more meat.
To eat more meat,
Yes.
absolutely. To eat more meat,
Yes.
more red meat, because it's cow,
Mutton,
it's
you
goat.
can eat beef, you can eat mutton, you can eat chevron, which is the meat of the goat. So all these are available. So the Ghanaians, they should keep us in a euphoric
They
state.
shouldn't mar the celebration today.
Yeah,
at
they
all.
not at all. After 5 p.m., we still want to be smiling. So.
But everybody, your maybe a word of advice, final words to our Muslim brothers and sisters on this day.
I'm from Kumasi. I wish Otumfo a very blissful celebration. I wish my parents, my mother is called Auntie Balira, and my dad is Ibrahim. I wish them the very best. I have a sister, my eldest sister, her name is Maimona. I wish her an enjoyable Eid al-Adha with her family. I wish multimedia, Kemeni in particular, Bright and all the people here. I am very sure that you will join us in the merrymaking. So that we eat meat
Definitely,
together.
right after here.
Yeah, so the final word is let's do our best and keep the peace. The world is watching us. The world is watching Ghana because we are an example for everybody. We're a quintessential example of interreligious harmony. And the youth in particular, those who ride motorbikes, they shouldn't use this opportunity to endanger the lives of other people. You should be decorous, even in times of merrymaking. And may we live in prosperity and health to witness another Eid next year.
Absolutely. Abdul, Ya Salam Publishers, you doing something?
Yes, we're doing a lot that has a lot of relation to the time. We're doing a research we call the past, the present, and the future of Muslims.
I see.
My brother Irbad made mention of the fact that if you come to Ghana, because of our central leadership of the National Chief Imam arrangement, it makes a lot of things move on faster and in a very conducive atmosphere for us. We're doing research about all these things, about the history, the contribution of Muslims, and how the leadership of Muslims in future in this country will be best and better. So we hope that other countries can pick out of that research and then imitate what Muslims in Ghana are doing. Just to also use this opportunity to actually wish Barakat Salah to all my PPF team, that is the researchers in Yasalam Publishers, and then to my family, the Daru family, to my colleagues and all friends and family, and to the Muslims, I just want to say that share the meat with your friends, your neighbors.
So
and
you came to share yours with me?
A lot. I have a lot of meat.
all right. You have no. I think this has been the most exciting Islamic conversation I have had in years. I'm totally grateful both of you came around today. It's been insightful and exciting all at the same time. Ibrahim Irbad or Irbad Ibrahim is an expert in Middle Eastern culture and also political Islam, and he's to my far left, and then Abdul Salam Mohammed, the CEO of Ya Salam Publishers. We've been talking Adha, we've been talking Islam, and one thing is clear: Islam is peace. Islam preaches respect, and all the other things we have seen professing Islam is not exactly Islam. Many thanks, gentlemen. But let me read some of your comments on Facebook as far as the Ghana Egypt match is concerned. Aku Brown Wagbanyo says, "Go Ghana, we will win massively. Black Stars all the way." Alexander Dakwa says, "4 for Ghana, 0 for Egypt." I'm not sure it's going to be a 0 with Egypt because there's side to reckon with. Oh, let's not have a heart attack after the game. You know, like the Luis Suarez time. Solis Tego says Ghana will definitely win. God bless our homeland, Ghana. Nanaya, our captain, says Ghana will surely beat Egypt 3-0. Go Black Stars, go Ghana. Emmanuel Kwete Darlington says it's going to be 1-4. I'm not sure what he means, so I'll just let go that one. Ayintara Ape says Ghana 2, Egypt 1. Amankwa David also says we're gonna score them 2-1. Oh, that's friendly. And Mackenzie Wolfer says 3-0 for Ghana. And Repent Nana Kwesi Boatin says Ghana 3, Egypt 0. So those were your comments on Facebook. If I was unable to read yours, I'm totally sorry, but it's been a fantastic hour. So it's been a special edition of News Desk. I have enjoyed myself. On that note, Eid Mubarak to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. I am coming home for my meat. Many thanks to you at home right now watching me. I'm totally grateful you watched News Desk today. I am Kemini Nyamani Amano. Stay on for the rest of our programs. Thanks for watching.